Hello everyone, this is Marshall Official. Welcome back to another video. This is going to be another Russia-Ukraine war update on all the map changes from the last 3 days. And yes, there are major changes, and we mean major changes in the sense of there are major Russian breakthroughs. And specifically, I should say there are five hotspots where we have seen major Russian breakthroughs over the last 3 days. And we do have a little bit of Ukraine advancement as well this time, but overall, it's not looking good for Ukraine. We're just going to start off right now. I'm going to try and do this as fast as I possibly can. Let's just start off here in the Kursk region, where we do actually see that the Ukrainian forces were able to somewhat pull themselves back together a little bit, where they actually managed to recapture a pretty good chunk of ground here into the east. No towns in this area, but they did push along the P200 highway and captured this outlying area from this main line of villages right here. They also recaptured most of Cherkasky Porishno, and they also, in general, it's a pretty decent sized chunk of ground. It's 9.54 square miles. That's pretty big. They also made a smaller advance right here. We do have a geolocation here about this attack. They were able to get further, but they were then pushed back. And as for this Russian gain, them barreling down this highway, that seems to have been either fake news or it happened and then it was pushed back. So I am just going to go ahead now and delete this. That does now seem to have been incorrect. However, I am going to still leave the gray zone as like this, but just because of the fact that we do still have the reports of fighting happening around this area and near Viktorovka. So it possibly Russian forces are sending small parties across this territory towards Viktorovka. So this area is contested, not under full Ukrainian control, but it's most likely not under Russian control. That's what we know. So the Ukrainian forces were able to capture a little bit of ground right here, pushing along this highway right here. Not a huge deal, but however, the unit involved in this is part of the 47th Mechanized Brigade, which is a big deal. 47th Mechanized Brigade is meant to be like the flagship brigade of the Ukraine army, besides like the Azov Brigade. So they're involved. So they're actually, it shows that they're involved in these counterattacks and they're operating in the Kursk region. This is big news. It's important news, but it's also questionable news for Ukraine. Why are they sending probably their last remaining really good brigade all the way up to here in Kursk region? You're going to see why I'm asking this in about a second. But let's move on to that actually right now. We have no changes from anywhere else along the border. Volchansk and Lipsy, no changes whatsoever as usual. We have starting off right here. Russian forces were to make a little bit capture a little bit of ground in Kryakivka, moving northward, and also from the east to the west and moving north. They captured this residential area. They are also on the outskirts now of moving into Halishakivka, and in general, if Russian forces can keep this up, then we will see a push by them, pushing into this area from all directions, and it will be a big danger to this part of the front line. They'll move to encircle this. There's also just like the breakthroughs that are happening across the front line. We're also seeing the Russians pushing to make encirclements. Like, it's pretty clear that Russia's new tactic at this point is encirclement, intentionally encircling units, and we are seeing that starting to play out across this front line as Russian forces continue their push here to the south and to the north. Moving on from this direction, we have this is the first big breakthrough that happened, and and again you can see it's very major. This is 11.7 square miles. That's very major for this part of the front line. We can see Russian forces were able to advance at the greatest around 2.66 miles in one day. If they can keep that up, then the Russian forces will be able to advance to the Oskil River in about 4 days. That probably won't happen, but if they did, then they will be at the Oskil River in about 4 days. We see our Russian forces were able to capture a huge chunk of ground to the west of Selydove, and we knew that when Selydove fell, that was going to be a pretty good sign that this front was going to be in danger. And sure enough, we see this happen. Russian forces were able to reach the edge of the Luhansk Oblast and push into the Kharkiv Oblast. In fact, Ukraine is running out of territory that they still hold in the Luhansk Oblast. We can see here they hold this little piece of ground, this little piece of ground, and this little piece of ground right down here that I have it tied into the Donetsk Oblast. I shouldn't, but it is. But this little area right here is this Serebrianka forestry area is part of the Luhansk Oblast. So those 3 patches are all that Ukraine has left of the Luhansk Oblast. If they fall, then Russia will be able to declare that the Luhansk Oblast is once again, because it will be for the second time. Remember, they used to have control of it before, then they lost these three parts of it. But they will be able to confirm or say once again that they have full control over the Luhansk Oblast once again. And right now they have pushed Ukraine out of this fourth pocket that was right here, minus this little area right here. And overall, it's a major gain. They also advanced here and captured the majority of the village of Vishniva, minus this little like outskirt area right here, this like warehouse area or farm area that they weren't able to capture yet. But in general, Russian forces are advancing pretty heavily on this part of the front line, and we see how they are continuing to push in a westward direction this way. What Russia is likely trying to do is they already reached the Osco River from right here. They already reached the Osco River right here from this direction. What they're trying to do now is they'll probably push south this way, but also pushing north up here, obviously. But what they'll do is they're gonna try and push to capture something like this, pushing this way, and they're gonna try and capture and take control over all of this to basically make their hold along the Osco River as big as possible. So they'll divide the front. They've already divided the front into two different sections, up here and down here. But capturing all of this by making a big break from the east, where it would make their control and their separation of these two fronts much more secure, is what their ultimate goal is. It also could be a push on the Borova, of course. That also might be part of it. So let's move on now to the next point. This is our second big breakthrough. Russian forces. It's not as big, but it's still pretty significant. Russian forces were able to recapture the lost ground around Torsky. They also captured a little bit of ground right here, flattening out the front line here. And the big news was the capture of Novosadove. They were able to push southward and from from the east, pushing westward, capturing Novosadove. And as I predicted, Russia is using this highway to barrel down town by town. They'll now move on to Ternay, then Izmailivka, then they will join in their assault on Torsky to try and capture it. Capturing Torsky will put Russia in a great position to then move on to Liman. And Russia definitely holds some resentment for the loss of Liman, because Liman was where they tried to make their big stand in the 2022 counteroffensive. They tried to make their stand in Liman, and it didn't work. They were forced out of it. So Russia definitely wants to try and make a move into Liman, at least at some point. But to do that, they first need to capture this. This must be captured before they can make any hope of moving on to Liman next. So anyways, that concludes the Luhansk-Kharkiv front. Let's now move on down here. Nothing from the Seversk front. This front remains mostly quiet, at least in terms of changes to the front line. But we now reach major breakthrough number 3. Russian forces have been able to capture nearly a third or a fourth of the city of Chasiv Yar. A major breakthrough happened here where they pushed. It's one big continuous part. It's not like there's a piece here, a piece here, a piece here. No, this is one big continuous breakthrough and offensive. They captured the entire eastern part of the city. They have now reached the center of Chasiv Yar. Right here, I'll put it in yellow. They reached the center of Chasiv Yar, and they managed to capture everything by moving from across the canal and through the eastern parts of the city. What the Russian forces are going to now try and do is most likely put pressure on the city center itself, where the Ukrainian forces are likely to have their strongest units. And we are seeing a pretty big indication that Russian forces that are now using encirclements as their new main tactic. So we'll obviously see a push by Russian forces to get behind this area, and obviously here from the south to take the city overall. So this area, the fact that Russian forces were able to do this this was about a week. According to Syriac maps, this wasn't a one-day attack. This was about a week it took them to do this. But remember, this area's been stagnant for months. It's been basically stagnant with no changes for months. So the fact that Russian forces were able to achieve this in just a week, that's major news. It means it shows that Chasiv Yar might finally be breaking down after months of pressure, and it's finally starting to break and give in. Remember, Chasiv Yar is the highest point, I believe, in all of Donetsk. If Chasiv Yar falls, if Russian forces are able to take control of something like this, then that is going to be horrible news for the Ukrainian forces in Donetsk, and specifically in Konstantinivka, and also somewhat further down the road towards Druzhivka, Kramatorsk, and Sloviansk. Chasiv Yar is pretty much the only city standing in their way. They need to take Chasiv Yar to move on to the main line of 4 cities. Of course, there is still a big piece of ground between them. There are no major cities. It's just towns. So taking Chasiv Yar will be the stepping stone to pushing onto these, or sorry, if you include the man, it's 5. These 5 major cities that are protecting northern Donetsk. So Chasiv Yar is the last one that needs to fall, and Russian forces are getting pretty close to taking Chasiv Yar. Let's now move on to Toretsk. We have a geolocation here. It's not anything like, it's not a flag being raised or anything. It's just a something being blown up. So I figured I put it in here. So we have no changes from this front whatsoever, not at least not much. The only change we have comes from over here in Lyubimivka on the edge of Serebrianka. Russian forces were to capture a few more houses, a few more buildings, moving along the tree line and the railroad. And also, we also have another Russian force were able to capture this tree line right here and this tree line right here. So it's about another square, another 283 acres of ground taken. That's all. That concludes our front. We just don't have any change from this front. This front is slowing down. It's been a while since we've had any big changes on this part of the front. We've had a few. Don't get me wrong. We have had a few, but overall, this front is clearly starting to come to a halt. I mean, the only changes we had on this part of the front line in October were this patch of ground and this patch of ground right here. Other than that, not much. Well, actually, that's a lie. There was a pretty big piece of ground right here that was also captured, but after that, that was a while ago. Is when this happened. So Tourette's is slowing down at this point. This is not one of the five. This is not one of the five breakthroughs. No, the five breakthroughs were this, and this so far, and we do have a few, and we do have two more. And this is number 3 right here. This major just collapse of the Ukrainian forces on the Karakova front. This isn't necessarily the Pokrov's front. Selydove is kind of both, and you can kind of see how it links up. So look how Selydove, there's a road that's right here. I'll put it in green. Why not? Look, here in Selydove, there's a road that goes this way towards Pokrovsk, and this one that goes towards Karakova. Selydove is like right in the middle, and Selydove is on the verge of falling. In fact, it's being encircled. Just look at this. Russian forces were able to advance here, just like I predicted this. I was 100% right. Russian forces are pushing on to try and encircle the city, and they are very close to doing it. There is now only 1.7 miles standing between the Russian forces and encircling the city. And if that wasn't bad enough for the Ukrainians, the Russian forces are also pushing into the city itself and captured a huge chunk of ground. We have 2 geolocations, two flag raisings that showed Russian forces were able to capture the parts of the high-rise buildings. One of the videos actually brand new just came out, so I'm not sure where exactly that is, but it shows a Russian soldier in a building raising the flag. The first one was geolocated right in this area, but the one with the Russian soldier holding the flag out the window, not quite sure where that was geolocated. It could have been geolocated literally anywhere in the city. It might have been right here in the area that we already know Russia captured, or it could have been here, way up here. So it just has on Telegram. It just says high-rise building. So still waiting to know exactly where that was geolocated to know how the Russian forces advanced or if they did advance. So, but either way, we know that this advance did take place. This major advance, they were able to undo basically all of Ukraine's counterattack gains and push them all the way back. Ukrainian forces are also abandoning this area right here because this area is also itself in danger of encirclement. Russian forces might make a move to try and cut this off. So what Ukrainian forces did abandon all this area down here, but overall this whole front, the whole city is about to be encircled soon. So the Ukrainian forces at this point probably should start considering that they should abandon Selydove. You might say that's a hard decision for the Ukrainians to make. If they know if Selydove falls, Russian forces control this right here, and the front looks like this, then they know that the path to Pokrovsk will be completely open from this front all the way down to here. Will be pushing onto Pokrovsk. All of a sudden, it will be like the front just opens wide up, and it'll be a major attack on Pokrovsk. That's what Ukraine's afraid of. And at the same time, there's also the fact that Selydove connects directly to Kurakova. The southern, which seems to be right now, Kurakova seems to be Russia's main objective at this point. And they know Selydove also connects to Kurakova. Selydove is kind of the key to opening this front wide open and cracking it open and causing the Russian forces to be in the position they need to go on the major offensive onto Pokrovsk from all directions, and also Kurakova, allowing them to swing wide to the west of the city and get behind it to try and attack it from this direction over here, while also, of course, putting major pressure on it from all the other directions. This is why Selydove is so important. This is why Selydove is being hit so hard. This is why the Ukrainians fought so hard to hold on to it. They lost Novorodivka in like 2 days. They lost most of Horodivka in like 2 days. Then the last part of it only fell a little bit ago. But they really were doing. They threw everything they had to holding on to Selydove. But now it's clear that Selydove is on its last legs. with this advancement right here and the fact that it's about to be encircled, the Ukrainian forces are in a it's this isn't a Volodar situation just yet, but it's getting pretty close. It's not any longer, and the Russian forces get any closer to encircling, or if they do encircle it, it's get out or surrender. Because once Russian forces close its encirclement, it's already too late to get out. You can try and fight your way out, but that might fail. So then they could try to break the encirclement, but that could easily fail. We just don't know. But either way, this front is collapsing. Let's move. Also, you can see here Russian forces are able to capture the absolute last part of Sukarine. They captured these warehouses and buildings over here to the west. So Sukarine is finally secured for Russia. They also made a major advancement right here, capturing the entirety of Izmailivka and pushing into Selydovka. We also have this geolocation taken from this terracon right here, from like a day ago, something like that, that clearly shows, clear as day, the North Korean flag raised over this terracon. So, is it just a stunt made by Russian soldiers, or is it symbolic, or were there North Korean soldiers here on this part of the front line that raised this flag? We just do not know. It does seem too early for North Koreans to be in Ukraine itself. I mean, I'm pretty sure the Russian Ministry of Defense just said today that the North Korean soldiers are going to be on the Kars front in tomorrow, basically. So if they're just going to the Kars front now, of course they could be lying. Then how can Ukraine or North Korean's forces already be in Sukarine if they're not even in Kursk yet? So not quite sure what that means. It was most likely this was a stunt pulled by Russian, like actual Russian soldiers, not North Koreans. But anyways, moving on from that, we also have this major advancement right here. This is also huge, capturing the entirety of the city of Serini. So one of the three cities already fallen. We have three major cities here. We have Hernik, Kharkivka, and Zereny. Zereny has already fallen, just like that. This was one major attack, and the whole city fell. Russian forces were also able to capture more ground up here. They also captured more ground in Hernik itself. So this front is also, just like the other fronts, it is also collapsing. Russian forces made a gain right here to the west of Izmailivka, pushing again towards Kharkova. But Kharkova is not quite like Pokrovsk. Pokrovsk still got a buffer zone between them. They still got another 3.4 miles to go. That's not a lot, but at least there is a buffer zone there. Kharkova, different story. Yes, from the north they still have a good ways to go if they want to push on to Kharkova from this way, from the getting behind the city, but from the eastern direction, the direction you expect them to get to, they're right there. They're on the outskirts of the city. The city's right there. They're only from this direction. They're only 0.5 miles, and from this way, they're only about a mile. So it's clearly the Kharkova is already a frontline city at this point. And bear in mind, once Kharkova falls, there's not much left. Like in terms of big cities, that's it for southern Donetsk. Like for all of Donetsk below Pokrovsk, that's basically it. The only thing that really stands out is Vlykhnel Vasilka. That's really it. And even then, it's big but not too big. And the only other thing that stands out is Andrivka, but that's not really a city. If we zoom in, it's really just a big village. I mean, you can see it's just got a lot of residential buildings, but they're not even that close together. So it's just an ordinary village that takes over a big amount of space. So after Kharkova falls, there's nothing really stopping Russia from just taking everything south of Pokrovsk, just taking control over all of this. Anyways, but let's move on from that now. We do have one last major breakthrough, and that is on the Volodar. Oh, well, not anymore. Now it's on the Bohoyevlenka front. Russian forces have advanced across this entire front. They captured the last part of the highway right here. They also captured the center of Katerinivka. They also captured the first houses of Antonivka. They made this big advancement right here. And they also made these two big advancements right here. And we have one last, and that is the final fifth breakthrough. This one I would not say is a major breakthrough, but it is advancement, so we will talk about it real quickly. So Russian forces, that's a little bit of a mistake right there. That's okay. I'll fix that right now. Russian forces have made two advancements right here on this part of the front line, capturing some ground around Lavadne. They've also pushed up into Olhivsky. And Russian forces, it's unclear what Russia's goal on this part of the front line is. It's probably just a diversion, but it also could be Russia's attempt to reach the next oblast over, to actually push through and get to the next oblast. They're only 5 miles away. So if Russian forces push through, they can reach into this next oblast, which would be a major political win for Russia to get through the 4 current oblasts being fought over and reach the next one over. I believe it's called the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. If they can get into the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, that's a major win for Russia. Okay, so with all that, that is your entire map update. Okay, so just real quick, the permanent representative of the U.S. to NATO basically said that Ukraine's not going to get into NATO. That's just not going to happen. So the U.S. is saying that Ukraine is not getting into NATO. You know, Ukraine's got to have something to offer. They can't get in with being at war with somebody or in with disputed borders. That's just what it says. You can't get into NATO and you still have those problems. And and also at the same time we should mention there's really no way that Turkey or Hungary are ever gonna let Ukraine even get into NATO. So it's not gonna happen. Is basically what the U.S. is saying. South Korea is claiming, or actually no, it's Reuters who referenced South Korea officials and congressmen. That South Korea basically says that North Korea sent around 3,000 soldiers to Russia. Other sources say it's a whole lot higher. South Korea claims that. Ukraine says it's 12,000. So varies in numbers. We know we know for a fact is obviously North Korea has sent the soldiers. We don't know quite how many. Neither side neither Russia or North Korea released any numbers. But it happens. So that's all we know. And there's crazy wide variety in how many were sent. So nobody can really agree on that, at least as of right now. I already mentioned this in my last video, but France will send their Mirage jets to Ukraine. There will be the first 3 will arrive in the first quarter of 2025. And this is probably the only big news I really have, and this will be the last thing I'm going to say, is that the UN Secretary General Guterres, I think is how you say his name, he arrived at the BRICS summit in Kazan. Kazan is in Russia. I'm trying to figure out where that is. Here it is. It's right there. He arrived in Kazan for this BRICS summit, and he ignored the first peace summit invitation for Ukraine. The invitation for the first peace summit at Ukraine, he ignored that. So he went to the BRICS summit. That's kind of it might be people thinking, what's going on here? It might have people thinking that. Other people say, hey, this is the more important. He's going to the more important thing, whatever it is. But either way, this UN Secretary General went to the BRICS summit instead of the peace summit. So at the BRICS summit, as for what's going on there was a few major things that came out of it. Most notably, the fact that the Ethiopian president stated or announced a intention. It seems like Ethiopia might be joining the BRICS summit, they'll be joining BRICS. At least they might try. Putin himself said that it would be good to have him in. So we'll see that Ethiopia is now making an effort to join BRICS. We also still waiting on updates about Turkey. Turkey apparently they submitted their application to join BRICS as well. That was pretty major. That happened a while ago though. So Turkey and Ethiopia are looking to get into BRICS. We'll see what happens, but the BRICS summit overall it's a pretty big deal, and Russia and Putin obviously gave his plan for trying to replace the U.S. dollar as the world's currency and replace it with the ruble. And anyways, but that's everything. That's all the major updates. That's everything that needed to be said. So with that, everyone, I will see you guys next time. And make sure you guys, of course, like, subscribe, hit the bell notification. Leave a comment down below. And by the way, let me know in the comments if you think it'd be better if I just really quickly I just showed you all the updates on the map, just went through it real quick, and then I went back and showed you the geolocations. If you think that would be better, just go through these maps really quick, come back and then go to the geolocations one by one and analyze the geolocations. If you think that would be better, because right now obviously you can see what I'm doing right now. I just talk about the front and I'll put the geolocation on the side of the screen. So if you want to actually, tell me if you think I should keep it that way or if I should go back and switch it up. And go through the map without talking about the geolocations right now. And just go through it real quick, then go back and go through the geolocations in depth. If that's what you think I should do, let me know in the comments. Other than that, just comment whatever you want and share with all your friends. Like and subscribe helps me out a lot, and it's 100% free. Don't forget, subscribing does absolutely nothing For you, it doesn't do anything other than the fact it will let you know that when my videos comes out, so you can watch them. It will also help me to make my videos get better, and will cost you. And it doesn't cost you anything. So. I just want to say it right now. Make sure you guys do that to help me out a lot, and it doesn't cost you anything. And if you want to undo it, you can always undo it. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.